You know what they say? Mental health is wealth. You know what I mean? And I am broke as
Breaking news as Goldman Sachs issues a fresh round of dire economic warnings as they suggest inflation and a weakening dollar could very well be systemic. So we're going to dig into that, and by now we should understand at least somewhat that the Federal Reserve prints money at the cost of our future wages and pushes us closer and closer to all-out poverty. But, and this is a big but, you guys, another problem that we face as a society is the absolutely disgusting consumer spending habits that many of us have. So we're going to take a look at 2 TikTok videos from 2 young women venting about spending habits. One of them is strong and one of them is weak, but both have an important story to tell. Now, our ending segment is going to be on the possibility of an emergency 200 basis point rate cut, which some people think is absolutely possible by this summer, depending on how quickly the labor market continues to unravel. And first and foremost, you guys, happy Sunday and welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. This video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Mitch Vexler, sir, how are you this Sunday evening?
It's interesting that you use the word the consumer spending habits. It's not just the consumer spending habits, it's the corporate America spending habits by virtue of the financial engineering. And we're going to touch on that as we go through this video.
Oh yeah, you guys are in for a treat. We are definitely going to touch on that. And if you can, do us a quick favor. It doesn't take too much time. Like the video, share the video, definitely comment on the video, and let us know what you're learning and what you'd like us to teach about. This article came out this morning, April 27th from Zero Hedge. The hard data is holding up. Labor market data is not showing imminent warning signs, and further news of tariff reductions or trade deals, including with China, could fuel near-term relief. This can keep the market choppy as risk-off protection trades decay against you. However, be wary that we are not out of the woods. We are heading towards a period of more intense growth weakness. It may take some time for that to become clear to multiple people and all of the talking heads. Front-loading of purchases may boost reporting spending in March and part of April, as we've seen already. And with weak hiring a more likely swing factor in the jobs market than a sharp increase in firings. Jobless claims may be a softer signal than usual. It may not be until mid-May or early June that the negative impacts on the economy become more clearly visible. Policy uncertainty is high, consumer and business confidence is at lows, and GIR still assign a 45% chance of a U.S. recession over the next 12 months. Despite the tariff pause and other reversals, substantial tariffs remain in place, even with negotiations. It is hard to see a reversal below the baseline tariff of 10%, which is significant in itself. Given the inflationary impacts from tariffs and uncertainty around the actual end path for trade and fiscal policy, the Fed are in a reactive rather than proactive mindset, but I'll argue they've always been reactive. This is very different from the first trade war, where the bar to cut was quite low. Most Fed speakers have emphasized the importance of keeping inflation expectations anchored. I'm going to read that again. Most Fed speakers have emphasized the importance of keeping inflation expectations anchored. I'm going to show you some charts here in a second. As a result, we may need to see actual weak, hard data, which is also methodology and fraud, for the Fed to react, most likely via deterioration in the labor market. So saying they're not going to act unless the labor market unravels. If the unemployment rate does move upward, then Fed's dual mandate will kick in and the Fed can act quickly. I wanted to show you guys, just going back to the year of 2020, how much inflation has robbed us of our wages, and the fact that, yeah, it is systemic and it's not going anywhere. So I'm going to show you guys median household income, then I'm going to show you guys median household income adjusted for inflation, and then I'm going to show you how much money and wages have been robbed from us just over the last 4 years. So I'm going to show you again how bad the inflation really is, and I don't ever want you guys to forget it. But right now you're looking at median household income in the United States, and I want you guys to pay attention to the trajectory. And this is going to the year of 2020 to 2023. This is so far behind, it's crazy. But when we do not adjust for inflation, you can see that it appears, at least nominally, that wages continue to just go up, at least they have for the last 4 years. Now that I've moved my head out of the way, you can see it a little bit more clearly. So watch what happens, you guys, when we adjust for inflation. So instead of this line going up, it's actually going down for a period of years. So what you're looking at here is real median household income for the United States of America. So when we take into account how they've been robbing us over the last 4 years, it's not going straight up. In fact, this information is probably not accurate because they're not accurately counting inflation. Now, what I want to show you guys very quickly here is over the last 4 years, at least from 2020 to 2024, how much our wages have been ripped off as a direct result of inflation. So the first thing I want to show you is in this period of time, wages went from 68,000 all the way up to 80,000. That represents a difference in nominal income increase, okay, of $12,600. So I got to, first of all, I got to add $12,600 for just normal wage growth. But look at what happens, you guys, when we add inflation. I put the wages from 2020 right here, $68,010 to January 2024. Okay, so our real wages should be $81,045 plus the $12,600 in normal wage growth brings us to $93,645. But remember, I showed you that we're only making $80,610, which means, and I'll show you guys here by doing the math right in front of you, which means in that 4-year period of time, they have robbed the average American, each and every one of us in just 4 years, of $13,035 in wages per year. So multiply that by 4 and I'll show you how much they've actually robbed us cumulatively. $52,140 of your money and my money have been robbed from us in the form of inflation. Back to the article. In a recessionary scenario, the Fed can cut quickly and deeply 200 basis points. This stance from the Fed has led to the market pricing greater inversions through H2 26 and 2027. The difficulty is timing when the first cut could come, but they've already cut rates, so that doesn't make sense. We are in a difficult period where uncertainty is extremely high. Number one, we do not know the end result of the tariff negotiations. Number two, we do not know the impacts of tariffs on global growth and the labor market. Even if there are periods of short-term relief, remember, we are not through this uncertainty. If the market relaxes in the face of near-term resilience, look to add downside risk exposure. USD FX weakening is structural. While the journey can be bumpy with tariff headlines, over a longer-term horizon, the weakening in the US dollar should continue. The dollar provides the most natural means of adjustment to US tariffs. The uncertainty and recessionary risks. This is particularly true given the broad unilateral nature of tariffs this time round. U.S. businesses and consumers become the price takers, and it is the dollar that may need to weaken if supply chains and our consumers are relatively inelastic in the short term. Now, in summary, while markets remain choppy, don't be fooled by short-term relief, as hard data in the U.S. may be boosted by front-loaded activity. Uncertainty is not going away anytime soon and will take time to feed into the data. Use relief moves to add risk-off protection. The Fed will be slow to start, but if required, can cut sharply. The US dollar weakening move is structural and could be a multi-year phenomenon after years of overallocation to the US. Unlike in the US, where tariffs and dollar weakness combine to generate an offsetting inflationary impulse to weaker growth, the trade war is a more straightforward negative growth shock to the rest of the world. Mitch Vexler, this is going to be right up your alley. We've been hitting this home for the last 6 months. But could you explain how inflation and the dollar devaluation is systemic?
That article can be summed up real fast. So one of the key lines was tariffs, fiscal policy, inflation expectations, and the big one, add downside risk protection. That's that whole article right there. I understand where the writer's going. I understand extremely well the context, but the bottom line is the bottom line. Add downside risk exposure, which means protect yourself against the downside. Well, to Travis's question, the inflation is a hidden tax. The inflation causes interest rates to go up, not down. And that is also applicable to the federal government, which is exactly why President Trump is jumping all over Powell saying, lower these rates, we can't afford it. However, the opposite side of the spectrum is that interest rates will still go up because the risk of the US government defaulting due to the fraud that has been created, which is the inflation. When you print money, you create inflation. When you print money, you're counterfeiting, you're printing money. The combination of which means the debt loads that have been created, compound cumulative, which cannot be paid off, means that the US government, federal, and the state governments, local, by virtue of the school district fraudulent bond debt, are in the exact same position. They're a mirror of each other, which is going to require one of them and or both of them will not be able to honor their debt obligations. By math, they can't do it now. Every day that goes by and the school districts hold themselves out, well, give us more bond money, give us more bond money, the probabilities of a default increase by the day. It is going to happen because they do not pay attention, nor do they care. Well, we'll just print our way out of this. That isn't going to work. And that is exactly, if you read between the lines, where that article from Goldman is going. Add downside risk exposure.
And you guys, before we started recording this video, Mitch and I had a really good conversation about interest rates. And I was like, Mitch, I remember back in 2002, I was just getting into being a loan officer, and there was a breaking news story that came on saying that interest rates are finally at 5.25, and the whole country celebrated how low interest rates were, that we've never had a 5.25 before, and everyone cheered. And just 25 years later, that 5% interest rate is bankrupting people. So we go from celebrating it to being bankrupt. And Mitch said something that really hit me. He's like, well, it's the 6% bankrupting people because of one major problem, the debt load. It's now too expensive for our government to service our debt load. Absolutely genius. And if you were around back then, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, Mitch, let's get to the other side of the coin. Okay, we know the fraud bubble. We know that. We know that there's also a debt bubble from the government, but there's a huge but. Let's go into that. Apathy. Okay, so we're going to listen to two videos. One video of a young woman venting about her peers' reckless spending habits. And then the second video is of someone, I think that the only way that she may learn is pain and losing everything. Either way, this is what is going on with our youth right now. Take a listen.
I'm literally broke. I don't have no money saved in my bank account. I'm young and I cannot buy a house because I don't make enough money. I don't make enough money to buy a house, and I'm super broke. I don't have no money saved, and I work paycheck to paycheck to pay my rent. This is what people are saying on the internet. Okay, they're talking about how they don't have no money. Like it's so many young people who don't have no money, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's because we're overspending on other things. We're overspending. We're overdoing it. A lot of us is going out on trips, buying a lot of food, eating takeout all the time, paying for things that we should not be paying for, doing too much all the time. Like, what happened to us, like, treating ourselves every blue moon? Like, treating ourselves has become a thing every single day. Every single day, young people are wanting to treat themselves with something. And that's the problem. We're overspending, boo. You're overspending. That's what it is. A lot of times it's not people's rent. We're overspending. We're seeing the amount, we're paying the bills, and then we're like, oh, this leftover money, I can use it for something instead of saving. I seen this video. This girl was talking about how she don't have no money saved in her bank account but some change. And she showed her bank account. And then she has a credit card, $5,000 in debt off of a credit card. I don't even know how is that possible. Like, and she was young. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I hate credit cards. I hate it because it's a setup, and you would never, you would never see me get no credit card. No, I already got to pay school loans. I already got to pay them back. I'm not getting no more credit, nothing. Like, I'm not playing these games with the government. Like, a lot of us young people, we use too much money. We look at leftover money and we think it's free, and it's not. It should be saved for a rainy day. It should be saved for emergencies. That's the problem. That's why we can't afford nothing. That's why we can't afford assets, and we only can afford a car payment and a house and the bills that come with the house.
I think she did a great job, except with that stick of gum. For some reason, that stick of gum was driving me crazy. Now, listen to this video. This video came out yesterday.
I am literally broke, and it is so frustrating. I really want to talk about like a couple things of like what's making me struggle financially. I know right away people are going to be like, just get a job, like, you know, save the money, blah, blah, blah. I just have such a hard time like keeping a stable job. And it's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I don't want to work. It's because like I have so many freaking mental obstacles that get in the way and literally preys on my downfall. It's the fact that I get in my own head so much, I create my own panic attacks. Like, it's bad. And then I want to cry and I can't stop crying. It's embarrassing. Like, it is. But now the consequences is that I don't have money. So I've been door dashing. I've been looking into like little things that I can do, which the door dashing's fine, but it's like I don't have gas money to drive. And it's just like, like there's no possible way of me saving money. And here's another thing. I literally don't buy anything. I wear the same clothes. Like, I have my set pairs of clothes that I like to wear, which like I know a lot of girls my age are like, shop, shop, shop. I can't shop because I'm not even gonna wear it. I'm probably just gonna be like in sweatshirt and sweatpants or something. I don't buy things I don't need. I'm literally doing Project Pin to get all of my like skincare stuff and like all that out of the way. And I've gone through so much of it. Like, I need new stuff, but I'm not gonna buy it because I can't. I don't know. I've been trying to push through the fact that I'm broke, but like I can't. I can't do anything. That's just literally, I need some tips. I need some tricks. I need people to Venmo me because I'm struggling. I can't drive anywhere. I'm literally a community college student, and I want to move out. Like, I want to like do all these things. Like, it's so frustrating. I have so many goals that I just cannot reach financially.
She didn't look broke. She didn't look broke. When I was broke, Mitch, I did not look that good, man. I did not have jewelry on and some nice comforters. I didn't have that. All I had was nothing and credit card debt. My question for you, Mitch, is we, again, know about the fraud bubble, government debt bubble, but how much is the consumer actually responsible for their own debt spending issues? Is it just the government making them do that? Just the cost of living, or are they making bad decisions? What do you think, sir?
It's a combination of things. Apathy is actually a psychological issue. People may have suffered a person in their life telling them, well, you can't do this. So all of a sudden that portion of the brain shuts down. If I can't do it, I just won't even try. I'll just let whatever happens happen. That's apathy. It really is a psychological problem. That's on one side. On the other side, you have very nefarious things going on where the government would prefer that you rely on the government because that makes the government stronger and you weaker. Then you have maybe lack of parenting where the parents never taught the kids, you have to stand on your own 2 feet to make your way in life. So it's a combination of things. With that said, she needs help, right? She needs to find somebody who can sit her down and say, let's just focus on a couple tasks to help you get out of this situation. And it's not necessarily a financial situation with her as much as it is a mental situation where let's just take one portion of this issue and help you get on your feet. And then we'll take the next portion and the next portion. And that is happening everywhere. And you even see that not just on the consumer side. She's obviously a consumer and she doesn't have any money to go buy whatever she wants to buy and go shopping. That's a consumer. On the corporate side, you have the exact same problem in that, well, I can financially engineer my way to money. I can financially engineer it by saying, I, the corporation, can invest in this item, real estate, through a HUD 221-D4 loan at 15%. I don't need the 30%. I'll go and depend on the government to create bonds for me for the other 15%. And then we're going to call that low-income housing. And we're going to create the low-income housing to the point where the cost of building the low-income housing is 15 to 20% greater than what a conventionally built Class A multifamily would cost. And yet, magically, it has the premise of low income housing. It's not true. It's an illusion. And that happens on the corporate side. Why? Because the corporate side wants a higher rate of return. On the consumer side, they want what they want because they see the magazines, they see the government saying, go spend the money, they see the credit card companies, go spend the money. So it's the combination that makes people lazy and makes them ignorant. And I know that that sounds tough, but that's being shoved down their throat, and they think that that is normal. That is not normal. Normal is you are raised and are able to stand on your own 2 feet, and you have a job from which you can be proud of that job in order to stand on your own 2 feet, and you do not have to rely on the government. And I want to take this up one more notch. Most of you know I'm from Canada. Well, in Canada, there are people in Canada who literally are on welfare and live better than the exact same equivalent person working for themselves. That is what the government is capable of doing. They can turn what is a healthy individual capable of working into an absolute person who is incapable of working because they're too damn lazy to get off their butt and go to work. Why? Because the government set it up in such a way that they can get the exact equivalent, apples to apples, work, don't work. Human beings will take the non-work for the same amount of money if they're not getting the money. That's the problem with financial engineering. They're financially engineering by virtue of the advertising, by virtue of the actions of the government themselves. They're financially engineering your lifestyle, your future, and your finances away from you because you can't stand on your own 2 feet and or refuse to do so.
Well said. I mean, life is hard and life isn't fair. And the more we go through these things together, the better it is. To the viewers, do you want your money, your taxes, to go to pay for someone's lifestyle that is capable of working? Is that something that you want your money to be spent on? Or maybe you want to help, homeless veterans instead? Seems like those people that went through war and are facing trauma, I don't want to pay for someone's life that's capable of working like I'm working. I work 7 days a week practically. I want to go into the next article that came out on the 26th from Zero Hedge, where it's going into the possibility that Trump may force Jerome Powell to cut interest rates by summer. Here's what Trump needs to do for Powell to quickly cut rates. This is some of the stuff in here is petty. It's actually a little bit entertaining, but I'm going to try to skip most of that, stick to the facts. Back in December, we knew that Trump would need a rate cut by the Fed, the same Fed that cut rates 2 months before the election when stocks were at all-time highs. Why did you cut rates? 50 basis point cut? That's a big cut. When the economy was reportedly growing much faster and when unemployment rate was lower. Then why would they cut rates? That's why we said that all Trump needed to do is to pull an anti-Biden and instruct the BLS to show a loss, this is funny, of 200,000 workers at the first possible opportunity to force the Fed to ease. That's funny. And then Zero Hedge made a post, it looks like here on X. Trump pulls an anti-Biden, tells BLS to show loss of 200,000 workers in February. Fed cuts 50 basis points. Well, it turns out we were right because one of Goldman's top strategists wrote this week, some 5 months after us, that what needs to happen for the Fed to hike rates is a sharp deterioration in the labor market. Any significant upward pressure on the unemployment rate would see the Fed shift firmly towards action. And by action, they're saying cut interest rates. The April 9th pause of reciprocal tariffs helped to arrest the sharp tightening in financial conditions. What tight? Okay. And pull the U.S. economy back from the brink of a clear slide into recession. Remember these things, guys. But with levels of policy-induced uncertainty still high, consumers and business confidence at lows, and real income growth likely to compress, that's not good. There is still a good chance that the economy tips into recession. We think a full-blown recession would likely see the S&P 500 trade around 4,600, and then YH credit spread above 600 basis points and shorter maturity yields below 3%. So on net, a recession is likely coming, with the only thing holding the Fed up is the threat of tariff-induced inflation, if only in the short term. But even as Minneapolis Fed economists recently concluded, tariffs are a negative demand shock, which means deflation. Don't you guys want deflation? So let me ask you guys as a viewer, and deflation means prices going down. Would you agree with the tariffs if you knew it would create a recession, which would lead to deflation? Assuming you don't lose your job, right? Which is a really big assumption. Would you like tariffs if prices end up going down? Comment below. We continue to think that any significant upward pressure on the unemployment rate would see that the Fed shift firmly towards action and that a recession could easily see a 200, which is 2%, 200 basis point rate cut in a relatively short order. And if we have deflation or house prices go down at the same time of a 200 basis point rate cut, well, if you've been on the sideline, guess what? You just started winning. In other words, all Trump has to do is simply maintain. This is interesting, guys. Listen, I'm going to start over on this. In other words, according to this article, all Trump has to do is simply maintain the current level of sharp layoffs. Fully unleash Musk Doge in a parasitic government sector, which will more than offset gains everywhere and lead to a spike in total unemployment. And Powell will have no choice but to finally capitulate. Mitch, all of the talking heads, the only thing that they have right now, literally the only thing that is helping their narrative is a Fed put. They're banking, everything they're talking about right now has to do with a Fed put, or rather, just in case you don't know what that is, a federal bailout. Mitch, my question to you, sir, obviously the market's expecting that. What happens to the markets if they don't get a federal bailout and that hopefully Trump, maybe Jerome Powell, finally break, which I doubt it, but break the Fed put? What happens to the market?
This is a game of what ifs, and none of the what ifs are good. And that's because the debt load is so great, it is being ignored until it blows up. If the Federal Reserve says we're going to print money or we're going to lower interest rates, Trump would prefer and insist on the lowering of the interest rates. The problem is that the Federal Reserve, due to the fact that they only exist for the banks, will print money. When you print money this go round, given the debt load that's currently existing, with nobody willing to tackle it, you will end up with the Weimar Republic, or the system will blow to the point where they're going to have to swap currencies because there will be an actual default of the US government. They don't have any choice in the matter. That's where the math is. This cannot be paid off. They cannot generate the taxable revenue necessary. That's why you had a $1.8 trillion deficit in 2024. They cannot generate the money necessary. Not Doge, not anybody. It can't be done. That's the math. In fact, if you wanted to pay down $2 trillion of the $36 trillion worth of outstanding US national debt, you would have to double the US gross domestic product in 12 months. That is mathematically impossible. It will not happen. So until they start facing reality, all these what ifs, well, will he do this? Will he do that? Will the Fed do this? Will the Fed do that? It doesn't matter. It's going to blow to shreds until somebody sits down and says, okay, let's fix it. What's the number one fix? Get rid of the most evil entity in the US government, and that is the Federal Reserve. The entirety of the Federal Reserve should have its doors chained, because one person can make that unilateral decision, just one, that simply says, okay, we're going to do X to the interest rates. It may not be the ideal situation, and Congress may not be happy with it. But the bottom line is you've got 23,000 people there that do not work and were never voted for by the American public. They don't work for the American public. They weren't voted for by the American public. It was set up. And when it was set up, it was set up to steal money, to protect the banks, to backstop the banks from foreclosure on themselves. That's the problem. The what ifs don't matter. What matters is the amount of outstanding debt and how is it going to be dealt with. And all these other suggestions, well, we should do this and we should do that, you're missing the point. You're not looking through the right lens. The right lens is the debt. It's the debt at the federal level, and it's the debt at the local level that's paid for by the real estate taxes. That's the issue. You have created fraud. You have injected fraud. Printing money is just printing more fraud and isn't going to fix the problem. Look through the lens of the debt. And these people that are writing these articles, sharpen your pen. Look at the debt.
Well said, Mitch. Very, very well said, sir. Really appreciate your time. We're going to get you guys out of here, but I had a question first. I want you guys to comment below. Do you think that the Federal Reserve will bail out the banks once again? And if you do think that, what impact do you think that's going to have on you and the economy? Comment below. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of the Sunday. I hope you guys are successful and you're nurturing the relationships in your life. And other than that, if you're out there investing in yourself, real estate, the stock market, whatever it is, you guys already know, we wish you luck and we hope you win.